It is mid-August here on the east coast of Canada, and normally there would not be this much color in my cutting garden. I generally cut every available stem that I have and use them for bouquet making. I do a larger farmer's market just a few minutes up the road from me and a smaller one about 30 minutes in the other direction. The smaller one's on Wednesdays, my larger one is on Sundays. I also fill subscriber bouquets that I deliver on Tuesdays. I also bring a few bouquets sometimes to my local yoga studio on Fridays, and that takes up a lot of flowers. Now, the Wednesday market is a bit of a slower one. It's a lovely little market. It's a nice atmosphere usually, and it's a little bit more relaxing to attend because it's smaller. It's also a much smaller table fee. But Sundays have really picked up. It's always been a bit of a bigger market. It is a bigger table fee. But this past Sunday was the 4th time that I sold out, and I've been selling out earlier and earlier in the day. Now, I decided, with so many of these cosmos actually blooming, that I wanted to get a nice big bunch and bring them in the house. I have a couple varieties here. This one is apricota. I have cupcake blush, which might be this one. I'm not 100% sure, but it is fluffy and gorgeous, and I'm just loving these. The apricotas were the earliest to open, and these ones here, these extra fluffy ones, are just getting started. It's really nice to get out here and be able to pick flowers without worrying about the best time of day, the best stage to harvest for optimal vase life, not have a deadline, not worried about how much I'm harvesting. Now, not to say that I'm quitting selling flowers completely. We'll get to that. But what I realized I needed to do was make sure that I had the time with my 3 weeks remaining in the season to finish up my projects around here, do my fall planting, finish some brand new beds I had made. I also have a pretty large vegetable garden. Well, large for a small yard anyway. And I have some canning that I want to do. I've done hardly any harvesting in the last 2 weeks, and I know there's a ton out there. I think that's enough. I actually did cut a big bunch of zinnias and most of these snapdragons for a flower friend the other day. I also have some zinnias interplanted. I figured the snapdragons might fizzle out and I wanted to put something else in between, but look what I just noticed when cutting the snapdragons. This zinnia, oh, I thought that flower was damaged, but I think it's going to be okay. This zinnia has variegated foliage. There's some yellow on here, and I'd like to actually save those seeds because I've never really seen that before. I believe these are supposed to be a queen lime mix, and it looks like that this flower here is going to fit that bill. So this is my tiny greenhouse. It is about 6 by 9 feet. There's herbs planted around it, and then I have 7 in-ground rows. Right now they're only about 12 feet long. There's a bit of an expansion project that I need to finish back there. That's one of them that's on my list. This started with stock, and then I interplanted it with snapdragons, which worked great. And when the stalk came out, I stuck some zinnias in there in between. This row is status, and I've used so many stems from here already this season. And now that I'm not making bouquets, all the rest of them are going to be dried. The next row is Rebecca. And Cherry Brandy was the only variety I could get my hands on this past year, but it turns out I don't really like it. So I'm going to be pulling all those out. There are a handful of flowers in here that I do like, that I have been cutting actually, which is why you can't see them. But I'll be pulling out all the Cherry Brandy and then relocating the rest. Now I had a few leftover status plants that I put in this row. There's some apricot, and I filled in the rest of the space with basil. I have cinnamon basil and lemon basil, which I'm both letting bloom out for cutting. They've been planted about 3 weeks and they're looking really good. The next row was yarrow, but it's been overtaken by weeds. So another one of my jobs for this week is to take out the plants with the best coloring and then completely clear the rest, and then probably plant with something that I'm going to overwinter. And we've seen the cosmos already. Apricota is definitely a winner. I love this one. I had two other varieties. One was Cupcake Blush and, oh, Seashells Mix. Yes, so this one is a seashell mix. The petals are tubular, which is very interesting. Here's a dark one. And then the Cupcake Blush, no, that's another Seashells Mix. And then the last row is straw flowers. And I did use some of these in bouquets, but these are mostly for drying. I love these dark colors. There's some bright pink. There's some buttery yellow ones, some orange, some apricot-y colors. This is by far the most straw flowers I've ever grown, and I will be doing the same next year. Now at the end of that row, I do have some perennial grass. And I plan on dividing that a little bit more. I'm trying to make a screen between the driveway and our little pool back there. I think it's working, which is also why I put the cosmos here, because they're nice and tall. And even when I cut them, it's working really well. So those are the 7 in-ground rows next to this greenhouse. On the other side of my little walkway, I have some raised beds. And these have traditionally been perennial. I say traditionally, which is the 4 years since I put them in. This has feverfew. This bed did have tulips, and when I pulled those out, I found a tomato and a kale seedling that just came up. I don't remember planting that sedum, but I didn't want to take any of those things out, so they got to stay. Most of these beds have been flipped at least once. This one has scabiosa. It has Sweet William, which was put in too late, so I'm not sure if this will flower. I'm hoping it will flower when the weather gets cooler. And then a little bit of annual phlox. I think this is Sugar Stars variety. It's really nice. It has a great vase life. This one is asters and gomphrena. The gomphrena is mostly for drying. The asters were for late season markets, which I suppose they'll now just be for us. This bed had some elephant garlic, and I stuck some gladiolas in earlier in the season. They would normally be cut well before getting to this point, but now we get to watch them bloom out in the garden. I also direct seeded all these Chinese forget-me-nots in here. I think I had this seed saved from last year, so I have a good mix of the dark blue and the pink, and this lighter blue I really like. This one has some tarragon and a healthy sprinkling of weeds. And then my lily beds, the ones that were too short for cutting, I just deadheaded. They'll be taller next year, so I can use those. We have Oriental hybrid lilies on this side, and then Asiatic lilies on this side. These I plan on moving, and that is another project that I get to do now that I'm done with my markets. So I call this the lower garden because it is on the lower end of our yard. There are also a few raised beds on this other side. That is the neighbor's shed just over the property line. We tried to make a little hedge with corn, which is working a little bit. We just needed way more of it. Now these 4 raised beds here are 4 by 8 feet. The other ones were much smaller. They were 3 by 5. These ones have been here the longest, and they usually house tulips over winter. I had daffodils in one. Right now they're mostly full of dahlias and a handful of other things that are grown from seed. This one over here had the ranunculus in this spring, and then nothing because it actually needs to move. We're setting up a bit of a mini orchard. Now we don't have a lot of space here. Our entire yard is about 1/3 of an acre. But here we got 4 apple trees this spring to replace the 2 that were destroyed by the neighbor's bunnies. That's another story. I'm also delineating the property line a little bit with shrubs and some perennials. There's a yew, there's some mock orange, there's a whole bunch of lilacs, and I think a couple of forsythia planted all the way down the property line. We have to be patient, but eventually that'll fill in really nicely. That way eventually we'll have a nice natural fence. Some veronica that I grew from seed last year, and a shrub that I keep forgetting, euonymus maybe? I'll have to look that up to make sure that's right. But this veronica I grew from seed, hoping it would be lovely to use for cut flowers, and it is gorgeous. Now the vegetable garden. There are 8 rows here. They're about 22 feet long each. There is no other word for this than absolute chaos. Complete chaos. Most of my tomatoes have fallen over. That one took out 2 beautiful marigolds. 1 beautiful marigold. There are so many tomatoes in here. I actually haven't stepped foot in here for a week, and I'm going to pay for that. Yes, this is my favorite tomato. This is a speckled Roman tomato. I have more paste tomatoes. Oh, cilantro. Forgot I direct seeded some cilantro. It is starting to get crazy windy out. It seems to be a little bit better up here in the vegetable garden, thank goodness. But that's just reminded me that I think we have some pretty significant rain coming, and that's going to be a problem for these tomatoes. We haven't had rain in probably 10 days, and that's fine for most established gardens. At the 10-day mark, if it's still really hot and sunny, I like to give everything a really good water. But if tomatoes haven't had water in 10 days and it's been hot, the fruit itself might look fine, but when we do get water, they're going to split. Along with the tons of tomatoes that I'm sure I have in here, there's also tomatillos. Let's go have a peek. They've gone completely wild. I didn't stake these at all. That's my fault. I see one down there. That one's probably rotten. I actually haven't checked on these at all in probably 3 weeks. So I'm not sure what we're going to find in here. Oh, there's one. This is Plaza Latina tomatillos. They are very citrusy, very acidic. They make an amazing green salsa with this and a lot of cumin and a lot of cilantro. We absolutely love that salsa, but I need to get in here and harvest those tomatillos first. I've done a little fall planting. There's some beets and some broccolini in there. I love broccolini. You can tell my weeding has started to taper off a little bit. I need to do that. This is Tulsi, which is holy basil, which I grew a few years ago, and it started to self-seed, which is great. Did I realize I had beets here? That is a big beet. Apparently I have beets that I forgot about. There's a few green onions, and then these are my last sunflowers. These are extra special because these are Sunflower Steve's Van Gogh mix. I started them indoors. They got very root bound. I luckily only started 1 out of my 3 packages because I hear he is having a rough season and may not have any available to sell this year. So I have 2 packets set aside for next year, and I'm very happy about that. Are those carrots? Those are carrots. I forgot I had carrots here. They've been completely overtaken by the tomatillos. Let's see if we have any pumpkins. Oh yeah, we do. 1, 2, oh, there we go. There's a little, is there a little yellow one? That's a little yellow one. This is the Baby Jack mix, I think. So those green ones should turn orange. There's some of my chaos tomatoes. This entire garden is chaos. Then I have some climbing beans. There are some beans on there. I'm gonna get my kids out here because beans are one of the only things that they have patience to pick themselves. They will shortly be trained in other things, but for now, if they're happy picking beans, I'm happy. So these tomatillos have now overtaken 2 complete rows. What do we have? That's more pumpkins. What do we have back here? Oh, eggplants. Again, no idea why I bothered to plant eggplants because we don't really eat eggplants. I might force myself to find a recipe though and give that a try because there are some good size. There's another one. Probably have 3 or 4 good sized eggplants back there. I do have asparagus back here, which have been completely overtaken by weeds. There's another project. Oh, zucchini. These are beautiful zucchinis. I forgot we had those back here. Now this is a flower that I had planted here last year that's self-seeded, winged amobium. I've been cutting bunches of this to dry. Now if you saw my early garden tours, I was complaining about the deer topping my pepper plants. They have recovered. They don't all have fruit on them. The amobium's kind of taking over. There's a few small peppers. I've actually harvested about 6 or 7. These are my pickling cucumbers. I said I haven't set foot in this garden. I did come in here and grab pickling cucumbers, so that was kind of a lie. There's another one. I see a few here, so I'm making pickles later. Oh, there's a good sized green pepper. And more, and more. Oh, more pumpkins. Green one. Some more. Oh, it's going to be a good year for baby pumpkins. Now, because it's been a wet year, a lot of these leaves are starting to get powdery mildew. That's not unusual, and those are the oldest leaves. So if we look up at the top, all of these ones look perfectly fine. Tons of baby pumpkins. Oh my! There's a zucchini that I missed. And oh, you see that butternut squash, I think, back there. Where is that? Right there. That would be a butternut squash. Oh, I see another one too. Oh, good. I think the moral of this video is me getting sidetracked by vegetables. But I need to finish my thought about the farmers markets. This was not just a clickbait title. I have quit my farmers markets. My last one was about a week and a half ago, and I quit them until the end of the season, not forever, because that is what brings the income in to support the garden. I don't do flowers full time. I do it to support the garden and a bit of a summer income. I'm trained as a pianist and I run a full-time teaching studio. I have about 40 students, so I'm busy into scheduling right now. I think I'm up to about 25 and there's still 3 weeks before the term starts. So it's gonna be a busy year, and I pretty much shut the garden down by the end of September. So with 3 weeks left before I start teaching full-time, I really want to get some of these projects done, because a lot of them I didn't get to last year because I was too busy with markets. So I can deal with a month less flower income because it's just a side hustle anyway. And if I can finish our little orchard, our patio behind the cutting garden, did I even talk about that? Behind the cutting garden, we've got an extra 10 or 12 feet of space, so I'm going to build a little patio back there. We already have the bricks. I was supposed to do that in the spring, but we never got to it. And the plan is to put in a lot of things that can be used for cutting. So I have a lot of plans. I didn't even get to the front yard, but I'm working on a giant expansion of my front yard space to add a lot of things for cutting. I've got lilies coming in the fall, another 2,500 tulips, I think 300 daffodils. I almost forgot about those. I have a still bee to move. I've got peonies. Did I say peonies? I have 12 peonies and a whole bunch of other spring flowering things specific for cutting, but I need the space to put them. So I'm not going to make the mistake last year of running out of time to plant my daffodils and attempting to overwinter them in the basement. They did survive, but this winter I need to get them into the ground for sure. So it sounds like my neighbor's just turned on his lawnmower, so it's gonna get noisy. It's getting windy. And I think what I'm gonna do next is harvest all these vegetables before it rains tomorrow. And then I guess tomorrow is going to be a canning day. And yes, I think I'm gonna film that too. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you then.